Oops. Moment. Oh, I forgot to change. I see what's going on. I forgot to change the... I... Okay. Okay, that works. Oops. Oops. Okay. So, I forgot to change my just chatting... Not just chatting, my, reading stream position in Vtuber Studio. Merp. Merp. Ah. Hello. Hey. Merp. Okay. Merp. Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Do I have it?
Okay, how do
Okay.
I? Oh, there we go. There we go. I was like, I need to remember how to move you about again. It's like, we only did to do this once a week. Merp.
Let me remove some of my extra bits. And it's
I'm gonna stay the fancy gentleman. Okay, that works too.
Yay. Oh gosh, I'm still attached to you.
Yes. Forever attached. And there we go. You're forever attached. Enjoy.
I touch all the things.
Oh yeah, I need to remove. Actually, that works. So a funny thing to note is if you're multi-streaming, I could group up all the chats together in one chat for me to use, but I can't show it on screen. It's a weird caveat from Twitch.
Weird.
It's like, what does it matter whether the chat is grouped up and people on screen can see it or not? And it's like weird, but okay. You just get no chat at all then. Yeah.
I doubt I'll be able to do it every day, but
Yeah.
trying to draw one thing that I can be like, it's done every day.
Yeah. Even if it's something small, it still counts.
Trying to get that stupid muscle memory back.
I do like your latest art piece though.
Gath is gonna be my like typical go-to boy, just
Yeah.
cause it's him.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have to think less about muscles than when I draw JC.
Yeah. There we go. That's clipping on the edge of screen. Or the
Don't
hat.
worry, you'll get JC smut though.
Yay.
And Tentaskeer smut because for whatever reason. I'm just like, but what if I drew my friend naked?
Yeah. Okay, so we're approaching the end of the third book. Actually, today will be the end of the third book. I think there's only 10 chapters. Yeah, 10 chapters. So we're on book chapter 9. So we have 2 chapters to go. Hence why I felt it kind of safe just to do start a bit later than I normally do on Mondays. And I needed to eat food too, so that was also an excuse.
You and all that food eating.
It was my one and only meal today. And we went to McDonald's because laziness. And ow! Who threw that at me?
I have no idea who.
Poppin'.
Weird.
Ooh, you redeemed first finally as well.
Yeah. Now you have more food to eat.
More food, yes. Yeah, and then basically what they ended up doing was, like we ordered chocolate milkshakes because that's been my latest addiction. And we order it and get all the way home. I take a sip of this new milkshake after having like finishing a whole thing of medium fries, and it's vanilla. So you needed to drive all the way back. It's like, hey, we ordered chocolate and you gave us vanilla, which we won't drink. And then they're like, oh, okay, let's replace that. And it's like, actually, we're out of chocolate. This is why we gave you vanilla. And it's like, why didn't you just tell us that? So we didn't have to drive all the way back here? Because we were home when we noticed that they gave us the wrong milkshake. So that was fun. Okay, yeah. So we.
I've entered the era where my art is now all just button mashes. The
Butt mashes or button mashes? A little bit of both.
oh no, I don't name my files anymore. I just smash a couple of buttons and throw it away.
Okay.
FDHGJHKJLK semicolon is the title of the last one.
Fancy. Just that sounds like a random difficult password that you just. I guess that's one way to save your passwords without anyone thinking it's your password. Just save a file that password name, so you're like, oh, this website is this file.
That or it's CD keys.
Mm.
Remember back when those were things? Oh, I guess they still are.
Yeah, they are still a thing.
Oh, wow. I just get everything on Steam now.
Yeah, me too. But then there's like just the odd thing, or the that's like, hey, enter this key for something free. You're still forever connected to my tentacle, and I love it.
See, when I redo my tuber, I need to make it so I can lick things.
So suddenly I'm connected to your tongue forever.
Meh. Like licking something in the winter.
Yeah. But then you really want to lick me because you don't like black licorice.
It's growing on me. Because a friend of mine just gave me a licorice root to chew on.
Mm.
And it was good.
See? Told you
It's
black
nice to
licorice
chew
is
on
good.
sticks. There's some like feral need in me to just chew on sticks, and that like perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Last stream, last week on Tentacure Storytime. Wait, did I even stream last week? I think so.
I don't think so. No.
No? Okay. Then the week before. Alana got dumped by John and went to visit George. Basically.
Fuck John.
Yes. Fuck John indeed. Well, she was doing that, so.
Yeah.
and now she's doing that. Thought it was George, but now someone tried to poison George. So he went back to the main town, chorus. And Alana's like, it's too cold. I'm going someplace warm. In theory.
Oh, I found this mushroom gift that looks
questionable. Yes.
I found this
Penis mushroom.
Thought you might enjoy it.
Yes.
My new obsession will be mushrooms, because that's how I work.
And so, yeah. I've seen that GIF before, but I still love it. Always. I get. Oh wait, you probably will still be able to hear these sounds, right?
What's that?
Oh, just the laugh track I have on my.
Oh.
Like you could hear the sounds.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, wait, will he still hear the chapter change sounds? And I think so. Test. It happened to click the laugh track sound. first. Anywho, we're gonna start with chapter 9. At the sign of the dancing dove. It was almost dark when George, Merrick, and Ericole arrived at the gates of the city. Of course, they just made it in time. The greater gate was closed and locked behind them for the night. Now, travelers would either have to enter the city on foot or turn back to a nearby wayhouse until the gates were opened at dawn. All three men were tired. The ride from Port Kane, which normally only took half a day, had been filled with battling winter, wind, and sleet. "We've easier travels afore now, Majesty," Ericole remarked as they turned their horses into the long alley that led into the stables at the rear of the Inn of the Dancing Dove. "Warmer, too." It was far darker in the alley than on the torchlit main streets, and George felt uneasy. Bringing up his chestnut mare, he scanned the shadows. Noticing their chief's wariness, Merrick and Ericole began to search the dark too, readying their long staffs. Only George dared carry a sword openly, as Tartalian commoners were not permitted them. George let his mare inch forward until he spotted an overhang. Smiling grimly, he kicked the mare into a jump. The man on the overhang leaped in a second too late, falling behind George. The other masked attackers surged out of the connecting alleys and doorways. George ran one through and wheeled to catch a second as he grabbed for George's saddle. A quick glance told him Merrick and Ericole remained hoarse, in spite of attempts to unseat them. George's mare reared and knocked the man trying to cut her saddle girth flying. The thief grinned. Not even his most trusted people knew he had trained his favorite mount to fight like a noble's warhorse. As her moonlight fought for Alana, the mare he had named Beauty curvetted, her rolling eyes searching for someone else stupid enough to get in range of her hooves. Merrick yelled and clutched his shoulder, where a dark flower blossomed against his light-colored jacket. Distracted by his henchman, George didn't see the man on the roof overhead until he leapt onto George's back. They grappled before the knife in the other man's hand held. George using every trick he knew to dislodge his enemy. The attacker was strong, stronger than George, but he had forgotten the Thief King's almost supernatural speed. Twisting into a position that made his back scream, George got one hand free. Flicking the knife he carried hidden in his sleeve into his hand, he stabbed his attacker with a rapid-fire movement. The man gasped and fell off, rolling into snow. As if his death was a signal, the others broke off and ran. George would have pursued them, but Ericole reminded him that Merrick was hurt. The younger man was slumped in the saddle. Blood dripped freely down his arm into the slush on the ground. Ericole wiped his knives on his sleeve and slid them back into sheaths at his wrist. "It did not for a sound, Majesty. Not a word." "So we can't guess who they are, doubtless." George hoisted Merrick up, wishing just once for Alana's way with fire. "Will you make it to a safe place, lad?" Merrick grinned weakly. In the bits of light that came from the houses and shops on the alley, his handsome face was pale. "All these years, I've tried to take your throne from you, George. Now we both have to fight some usurper." "Can you hold up a bit more?" "Aye." Merrick boosted himself erect in his saddle. "Lead on, Majesty." Enjoy the words. George took the rein of Merrick's horse and headed down a second alley, thinking hard. Until he knew the nature of the enemy, the Dancing Dove was not safe for him or the people closest to him. He led Merrick and Ericole to the back of his mother's walled house, trusting that his enemies had not set a trap there as well. He was reassured by snow piled around the small barred gate. No one had walked here recently. Dismounting, he used his keys to undo the double locks before taking Merrick and Ericole inside. The young man was slumped over, and Ericole held him in place with one hand. "Stables are over there," George told him quietly as he slid Merrick off his horse. Unless we've other guests hid within, this place is safe." "Get the lads inside," Ericole advised. "He's bleeding heavily, still." A second pair of keys let George into his mother's kitchen. A kettle was on the hearth, but otherwise the room was dark. Carefully placing Merrick on a bench by the big table, the King of Thieves slid out into the rest of the house, his every sense on alert. The ground floor was dark. Odd, where it's not even supper time, he thought. Then he stiffened against the wall, hiding himself in the shadows below the stairs leading to the second floor. A woman, not his mother, was descending. In a swift movement, he had the lady in his grip, one large hand cover over her mouth. "Don't scream," he advised. "Tell me what you're doing in Mistress Cooper's house." He took his hand away, and the woman drew a slow, shuddering breath. "She's ill. I'm a healing woman, come to stay with her until she's better." She faced George, and indignation lit her brown eyes. "George Cooper, such a fright you gave me. What do you mean, sneaking into your mother's house like a thief?" Recognizing her, he grinned. "Mistress Curry, I am a thief." As she gasped with shock, he added, "What's wrong with my mother?" "I don't know. Since All Hallow, she's been as weak as a new kitten. Only now does she get her strength back." George looked upstairs. "I'll go to her as soon as may be. Meanwhile, I have a patient of my own who needs looking after." Curry shook her head mournfully when he brought her to Merrick. She got the wounded man braced on her shoulder easily, handling him as if he weighed nothing at all. "Open the door to the work chamber." George obeyed and lit the lamps as Curry gently placed Merrick on the long table. "I'll need boiling water. Make yourself useful," she commanded, cutting the jacket away from Merrick's shoulder. Back in the kitchen, George put the kettle on to boil as Ericole warmed his hands. Telling the older man the situation in the house, George placed him at Mistress Curry's orders before running upstairs to his mother's bedchamber. Eleni Cooper looked at her son, her hazel eyes alert. "I thought I felt you in the house. Did you frighten poor Curry to death?" She seemed unshaken to me. "What's happened? I saw you not long before All Hallow, and you were fit enough then." "I tried probing someone's magic too deeply. The guards set on it were very strong." "Tom!" George hissed. "By the Dark Godmother, if he's hurt you with his precious experiments." "Lady Alana's brother? I should have guessed. Only he has such power these days." The woman shook her head. "If only I knew what he was up to." She sighed and returned her attention to George. "And what are you doing here at this hour? I thought you'd be stuck fast to Lady Alana's side." He shook his head, looking away. "We've parted, Mother. She to go adventuring, and me. This house has been watched for 5 weeks now." She read his thoughts, as she always had. "A man who wouldn't give his name and try to question the girl I have it in the glean. She has her orders, though, and she won't talk against my wishes." George could hear Mistress Curry's uncompromising tread on the stairs. "I'll be going out again as soon as I've made sure Merrick is well." Young Merrick's hurt. She had never met him, but George had often entertained her with stories of Merrick's attempts to get the throne of the rogue for himself. He'll survive, Curry announced, having heard the question from outside. He lost a deal of blood, though, and I put him in one of the small rest chambers. But he'll live? Only now did George betray his anxiety for his longtime rival, and sometime friend. He'll live and cause more trouble, I don't doubt. George nodded, relieved. Mother, I need house room for myself and another of my men, only for tonight. We'll go to Earth somewhere elsewhere tomorrow. Of course. His mother's voice was serene. Her eyes were worried. George. I can't help being crooked, Mother, he said, and this is the price I must pay. He kissed her cheek and looked at Mistress Curry. I'll be taking Ercole with me. We'll let ourselves back in. I'm sure you will, the healer replied severely. George laughed and patted her cheek before seeking Ercole out downstairs. They were outside the walls of the house, the doors locked behind them before Ercole asked, Where might we be going? The Dancing Dove, George said grimly before pulling a wool muffler over his chin. Ercole swore fluently and followed him. As a noble studying to become a knight, Alana had spent a good amount of time at the inn called the Dancing Dove. This was George's headquarters, the royal palace for the thieves who swore allegiance to the rogue. It was a place they gathered when they were not about their business as thieves. There were a number of entrances and exits, some known only to George and old Solomon, the innkeeper. George and Ercole entered through one of these, emerging in the darkened hallway that stretched behind the stairs to the upper stories. Sheltered by the dark, they could watch the entire common room, filled to its rafters with thieves, prostitutes, flower sellers, fences, forgers, peddlers, fortune tellers, healers, and sorcerers with small gifts.
Is part of that.
Pardon?
I like how flower sellers is part of that.
Right?
Prostitutes, fortune tellers, people who sell flowers, murderers, thieves.
And if you remember from the Provost Dog series, flower sellers was just another term for prostitutes instead of the word.
Yeah.
So it's.
But yeah, it really sticks out with the other one.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, all these like under the law radars, and they're like, oh yeah, here's some flowers.
These people sell flowers, and these people do crimes.
Exactly. Like, even including merchants doing secret business, rogue priests, and even a nobleman or two. So like all the darker side of Chorus is just in this is like flowers.
Oh, how suspicious.
Are the flowers laced with something, I wonder?
What kind of flowers are they? I mean, okay, yeah, it makes sense when I say it that way. I've been reading too much Pike to not compare flowers to nethers.
I mean, to be fair, like maybe just because like in the age before these books were like it was the prostitutes were flower sellers. Maybe it's just like adapted to flower sellers are just the prostitutes that haven't lost their virginity yet.
Yeah, basically.
Because one's
or slightly sneakier prostitutes.
Yeah.
Prostitutes, murderers, thieves, prostitutes.
Yes. Okay. Old Solemn and his maids bustled about, serving food and drink, while keeping a watchful eye on the table beside the great hearth, the place where George was wont to sit. George smiled grimly. Nearly all the people in the common room were quiet and fearful. When he sat by the fire, the din was so loud a man couldn't hear himself think. Now, the loudest noises were made by Solemn or the maids. The man named Claw was at George's table, although not, the Thief King noted, on George's throne. His back was to the two men in the hallway, and only his immediate friends, 3 vicious brutes George would not want at his back, sat with him. George searched the room for his own court and found Scholar in a drunken huddle on the other side of the fire. Lightfingers was nowhere to be seen. Rispa was still in Port Kane. But Orem and Shem were at the back of the room, playing dice. Making sure the 6 knives he carried was ready, George nodded to Urkel, stepping into the light, the older man at his back. He tapped Claw on the shoulder. "Thanks for keeping it warm for me, friend," he drawled in his sweetest voice. Claw jumped, knocking over his tankard. Brown ale spilled unheeded over his breeches as he stared at George. "But you..." "I know I said I'd be staying in Port Kane a bit longer," George said agreeably. "But there, I got that lonesome for all these friendly faces, and that bored without you lot keeping me on my toes." Orem and Shem had moved to the front door and were guarding it with drawn knives. 2 other men George knew he could trust came to cover the rear exit and Urkel's back. "You're dripping," he added, sliding into his throne. Not for a second did his eyes leave Claw. The man had a reputation for doing the totally unexpected, and he might be crazy enough to attack George now. Claw stared at George for a moment, his single, pale eye unreadable. Finally, he turned and snapped to his henchman. "Why are you goggling at me? Get a cloth or something and mop up this mess." His eyes swiveled back to George's face. "Welcome back, Majesty." He ignored one man's clumsy efforts to wipe the ale from his breeches. "I trust your journey home was uneventful." A bit chilly, Claw had lost his initiative, but it still paid to take no chances. George accepted a tankard of mulled wine from Solemn without looking at the old man. "Has all been quiet here?" "Quiet as the Black God's temple." At last, Claw moved away from the table, his men at his back. "Don't go," George said, waving an expansive hand. "Sit with me and tell me what's passed these weeks I've been away. 'Twould be a pity if I'd patched up my trouble in Port Kane to find it fostered here." The one-eyed thief hesitated, and George hoped the man would be mad enough to refuse. It would be all the excuse he needed, and Claw could never hope to equal him with knives. Then Claw snapped at one of his men. "Get me a clean chair." The man hurried away to obey as George realized Claw talks like a noble.
Oh yeah, isn't Claw that one
Yeah,
asshole?
yeah, it was the one that was bullying Alana. "Let me buy you a drink," George smiled, beckoning Solemn over. "I have a bone to pick with you, my friend." Claw shook his head when Solemn offered him wine, and with a shrug, the innkeeper refilled George's tankard. What could I have done to give offense, Majesty?" Claw asked, his face blank and innocent. "You cleared a maidservant to wait on me in mine in Port Kane, and she tried to poison me. Surely you looked into her background, Master Claw. A maidservant? I sent no maidservant to wait on you, the other thief replied. George slid the grimy slip of paper across the table for Claw's scrutiny. The one-eyed man looked it over carefully, turning it this way and that in the light as he pursed his lips. At last he shook his head and returned the paper. It's truly an excellent forgery, he announced calmly, but it's a forgery nonetheless. I never wrote this letter. You're certain? George asked quietly. Best think hard, for I do not appreciate hearing otherwise at some future date. Ask anyone in this room, Claw offered, gesturing widely to their staring audience. Did I ever send a serving woman to wait on His Majesty at Port Kane? Heads were shaken slowly as George realized, with some admiration, that Claw had found the perfect excuse. With no witnesses and the woman dead without having named her sponsor, he was in the clear. You're lucky, friend Claw, he told the younger man. Mayhap you'll always be so lucky to be innocent of the plots of others, of course. I hope to be, Majesty, Claw replied with a tiny smile. I do not wish to become involved in any losing propositions. When morning dawned, the common room had emptied of all but the people George knew to be loyal. He had learned nothing from Claw, although he had kept his rival at his side all night. That was to be expected. The learning would come now from sources he trusted. One by one, he sent his people out on errands, to talk to other thieves, to find those who had not been present, and to learn why. To learn who was Claw's and who was not. He sent them in pairs, warning them to watch their backs. Shem returned to Port Kane with a note asking Rispa to return as soon as Alana and Karam were on their way. George needed her when it came to dealing with the women who followed the rogue. They obeyed him for his looks and his charms, but Rispa knew their secrets. Finally, only Scholar was left. Even Solemn had retired to his upstairs room, exhausted with the night and its anxieties. Be discreet, but find me Sir Miles of Allow, George told the old forger. I'll need him here, disguised by nightfall. Scholar nodded and polished off the last of his mulled wine. I know where he's to be found. And Majesty. George looked up, surprised to see tears in the old man's eyes. As glad I am that you're back. That Claw's a bad un. As the door closed behind Scholar, George permitted himself a heartfelt sigh. Our Cole moved out of the shadows, looked as tired as his chief. Do we sleep here? George shook his head. I don't propose giving Claw my head on a platter. We return discreetly to my mother's house. And tonight? I have a better hideaway in mind for tonight. Standing, he clapped Ercole on the shoulder. Let's go. I want to see how Merrick's doing. Miles peered at Claw through the peephole of the false wall of the common room. Behind him, George waited. Old Solemn would draw Claw into a talk as they sat in front of that very spot, and Miles would be able to hear every word. After a second, the knight drew back and nodded. Silently, George led him away from the hidden spot, taking him upstairs to the chambers where he lived in more peaceable times. There he poured Miles a brandy, waiting till the older man had refreshed himself before asking, Well? No doubt about it, Lana's foster's father replied. Claw was born noble and was well educated. For a time, at least. Ah. Thank you for your meat, Foppin.
Felt right.
Just needed to interrupt Smiles, right?
Yep. I needed to give Miles my meat.
So you like the old man energy?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, he can't get it up, so... Oh, wait, no, he can't because he ends up dating George's mother.
Betrayal.
Okay, wait. Weird thing is Miles ends up courting and perhaps marrying George's mother. Miles is Alana's foster father. And Alana ends up marrying George.
Step bro.
So the step bro versus So her mother-in-law is also her stepmother.
Mm-hmm. At least they're a little less inbred than Jonathan's family probably is.
Probably. Very true. Wait, what are you? What? Oh, you're wearing the reindeer nose. I see.
I added some things.
I noticed.
It's a clown nose, silly.
No, it's your Rudolph nose.
I'm a silly little jester.
Rudolph nose and your tentacle stalks are actually just very thin antlers. You're just prepared for Christmas season. And you just need glasses to stop yourself from being blinded by your own nose.
I was just playing around. I'm like, okay, what else can I add without them noticing?
I only just noticed when I glanced over at the Twitch previews. Like, wait, there's something on your face.
That's what she said. I tried adding things to you, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be obnoxious. Here.
I mean, yeah, you could probably add things to me, but it just wouldn't stick to me.
There's this obnoxious yet?
But
Oh, is it even loading on yours?
not yet. Oh, there we go. The wings.
Yeah. They're moving with me, but they're not attached.
Yeah, they're not showing on like behind your avatar yet. Oh, there we go.
I gotta frickin' make everything fit again, though.
Yeah. That works.
Okay. Stick as many glittering, moving objects on your stream as possible. Watch it crash.
Nah, it's not. Kindle app is not resource intensive. It even looks like you're flying with when I move my head and you go bouncing.
There, better.
Yeah. Better antlers.
There, now I can be your reindeer.
Yes.
People keep seeing my horrific flying torso.
Yep, because you keep moving your blanket. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm tired. I slept 10 hours last night. Okay, where was I? No doubt about it. I was born noble and well educated, at least for a time. Miles frowned, shaking his head. The problem for me is that I know his voice. I've heard Claus speak before. And not as a thief either. He held his glass out for a refill. Perhaps my daughter is right. I should stop drinking. George grinned. Let me congratulate you, sir, on adopting Alana. It was a kind-hearted thing to do. It was a kind of her to let me. Miles demurred. If only she could straighten things out with Jonathan. No offense to you, George, but I do miss having her at court. As I miss having her here, the thief reassured him. Speaking of my lass, have you any idea what it was that precious brother of hers was up to at All Hallow? He told Miles what had happened to his mother. The knight sighed and shook his head. I know that a number of people in the palace with a gift were angry with Tom for days afterward. I've been hearing some odd rumors. He stopped for a moment, as if unsure of what to say, then went on. I have reason to believe Tom may have been trying his hand at raising the dead. George didn't try to mask the horror in his eyes. The dead? Is the lad insane? The dead are meant to stay so. I overheard some conversations he had with Lady Delia. Miles went on. She seemed to be taunting. What?
Delia. That bitch.
Yes. Delia the bitch, yes. She seemed to have been taunting him, saying that if he were truly the most powerful wizard living, he could raise the dead, as Carol the Sage was said to have done. A number of the younger people in the palace have been trying to ascertain the full extent of Tom's powers. I think they regard it as a game. Okay, sorry, I've been hearing things behind me, but I closed my door so the cats can't come in. I think the cats are trying to open the door and they're just running straight into it a time or two.
Their opposable thumbs.
Yes. I mean, Becca has learned how to open the bifold doors of the laundry room, so we need to get child locks for it. Still haven't done so yet, but it's on my to-buy list. A game? George whispered. A game setting the world by its ears? Calling on power no man should use for casual purposes? That is what I believe, Miles agreed somberly. Perhaps I'm wrong, George. I tried to talk with him, but I think his pride was offended when I made his sister my heir. He taunted me with half-truths and stories. Nothing definite, not even an outright lie. I know you have weighty matters on your mind, but what could be weightier than such as you believe? A smile crossed the knight's face, and for the first time George realized how frightened Miles must be. The smile took 10 years off his age. If you would approach Tom, being that you are who you are? As respectable as I am, George suggested with a grin. Miles grinned back. As a matter of fact, yes. Tom may talk to you, or at least reveal more of the truth. And I have my own grievance to make with the lad, George reminded him, remembering his mother's worn face. As soon as I get a hold on what passes here, I'll be up to the palace. Miles rose, gathering up his cloak. I'll start inquiries about Claw, he promised. Injuries such as he has, particularly the acid scars, are difficult to come by. They are even more so when you're nobly born. George gripped Miles' hand. You're a good friend, Sir Miles. Be assured, I won't forget. After showing the night out, George returned to hold court once more at the Dancing Dove. Once again, he stayed there all night, seeing who was there, being seen. Bits and snippets of information came to him over the next few days as Rispa and Shem returned and went to work. No further attempts on his life occurred, although word of a costly jewelry theft had not been cleared with him reached his ears. After a week had passed since Rispa's returned, he gathered all those close to him in a room hidden beneath the streets that formed the marketplace. As they compared notes, the picture of the thieves saw forming was a bleak one. He's got nearly half our people, with bribes or fear, George summed up. He must have been planning this a long time, before he came to the city even. He's been working through the likes of Zarina, the witch, Knave, the fence, getting his hooks into us. He sighed. We'll have to move slow then. Buy our folk back and destroy the secrets he's got against them. Why? Merrick wanted to know. Why not just kill him and be done with it? Because one of his people will come forward to take his place, George replied. I want this entire organization, not just him, because he's got help. I want to know who it is, and I want to know who he is. Why not just challenge? Why he does not challenge me like any other rogue would have done? And if he wins? Rispa wanted to know, her brown eyes worried. If he wins, then I don't deserve to be master here. George's face was grim. If he wins, I have no guarantees he won't betray every one of us to my Lord Provost or someone worse, because I don't know what he wants. Where he is placed now, he can rule us or destroy us. Do any of you care to wager which it is? There was no answer. He really didn't expect one. You all know what to do and where to ask your questions then. As soon as the passes open eastward, I'll send someone to find out what he was in Gala before he came to us. And it just occurred to me is like we know that Tom's spell actually worked. So, and it's like, so now Tom is in a romantic relationship with Roger. Presently.
Yeah. You tried to kill my sister, but man, you're hot.
Exactly. Man, you're hot. We're kind of connected. You're sucking away my life energy. Why don't we just make love and be done with it?
Why did he bring him back in the first place? Because that was Tom's spell, yeah?
Yeah. But it was because Lady Dahlia was like, if you're truly powerful.
Yeah, right. This bitch. Yeah.
Yeah. He is Tom is very, very proud and is like, basically was like, everyone's saying, you're not powerful. You can't do this. It's like, oh, let me prove to you I can. And instead of just choosing some random bloke, he's like, let's choose this person who has been
tried to kill my sister. I'll bring you back.
Kill my sister and take over the throne.
I mean, to be fair, Delia probably pointed at him.
Yeah, probably. He's like, why not Roger? He's not. He hasn't been dead that long. His body is fresh.
He's fresh.
Maybe less likely to try eat flesh.
Nom 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 nom. Flesh.
Other than Tom's member, maybe. Although to be fair, it's probably the other way around. Tom, Lord of Trebon, and the youngest living Mithran initiate, poured a glass of wine for his guest, a mocking smile on his lips. You can't imagine what a pleasure it is for me to have my sister's friend come to visit, he said, particularly when it may be as much as your head is worth to be seen here in the palace. Why not call me Alana's lover and be honest about it? George suggested. The purple and gold brocade robe Tom wore over his stark black shirt and hose hurts the eyes.
Yeah, hose.
Its costs would have fed a poor commoner and his family for a year. As it is, I have a number of things I care to discuss with you. I couldn't be waiting for your next excursion into the city to meet you. Particularly since I never go to the city, Tom agreed. So, Alana returned to the desert with a devoted Karam in tow. How selfless of her. Unless she is afraid Jonathan might convince her to take back her refusal. She needn't have worried. He's very much occupied with Princess Josiane these days. George stared at Tom. If my lass had made no friends, only enemies, he thought, and if she'd been too frightened to let others know she was a human being, disguise and all, she might well have turned out like this monster. He's all brain and cynicism now, with no heart left to him. Well, you're a nasty bit of work, aren't you? He remarked amiably. Why don't we talk of your goings-on here during All Hallow? A look of grudging respect entered Tom's violet eyes. I'm sure I told Alana and you I was working on experiments. George made a disgusted face. And I'm sure of no such thing. Didn't you feel my mother testing your garden spells? Or were so many trying to learn what you were up to? You took no notice of those left half dead. I felt someone test the ward, Tom admitted, but I was busy. I'm sorry it was your mother who was harmed. She had no business prying into that kind of magic. She's fortunate to be alive. Glad you think so. And what experiments are so important that you must put such spells to protect them? When Tom didn't answer, George pressed, Who were you trying to raise from the dead? Tom jumped to his feet, the mocking expression wiped from his face. You dare to question me, George Cooper? He yelled, fury radiating from him in waves. Your relationship with my sister means nothing here, so do not think to try my patience. George stood, his hazel eyes grim. Don't think to threaten me, laddie, he warned softly. I won't stand for it. I have nothing more to say to you, Tom gritted. Get out. I'll take my leave then, George replied. But I don't need my sight to tell me you're in trouble, great sorcerer or no. He hesitated. then said dryly, "Doubtless I'll live to regret this, but for your sister's sake, you may call on me in need." Tom drew himself up. "I am more than capable to handle my own affairs." "Is that why you're shaken so?" George inquired. "Best have a shot of brandy to steady your nerves, my lord. I'd hate to think where there was anything in this world of ours could be beyond the skills of one such as yourself." Bowing mockingly, he left Tom. "And there's not a thing I can do or say until I know what's right in him, like the old hag of the graveyards," the thief told himself
I know what's right
grimly.
in him.
Me too. Told himself grimly as he slipped out of the palace. And he is enjoying it, I'm sure. But I'll bet every knife I own he's gotten himself into trouble that won't be easily fixed. George smiled. Trouble with the rogue. Trouble with Tom. The future looked exciting. At least he wouldn't be bored. And as long as he kept his wits about him, it was good to be back in chorus. I had brought my drink upstairs with me, but I left it somewhere that's not next to me, so I'm gonna take this moment to take a break. Because I need something to drink. Sorry, what did you say, Poppin?
Goodbye forever.
Goodbye for a minute. He'll be back. A return.
I was abandoned.
You were not. I heard you complaining.
All alone. Unloved. Discarded.
And then why are you still here?
So I got stuck to your tentacle and you can't clean me off.
Stuck to, but my,
It's like
my tentacle is
day-old
through your
gum.
head.
I'm like day-old gum stuck to your head.
Mm. Mm. Okay. I think it's the mix of my slime and your slime, right? Your snail slime. It's just all the slime.
You're like year-old food from my fridge.
Dude, that's all
That
organs.
yogurt's been in there way too long.
Okay. So Ola gained sentience with all the organs.
Expiration date 1800.
Okay. Chapter 10. The Doomed Sorceress. Sorceress. My mic sounded in my head that my mic cut out for a moment, but okay. In a way, it was disappointing for Alana to find the Bloody Hawk had done very well for themselves in her absence. It's like she just wanted them to fail without her. It's like, oh no.
Wanted to be important.
I'm no longer important to the Bloody Hawk. I'm like, the children I left to take my place are actually doing a good job. I did my job well by training them.
Good teacher or something. Gross.
I didn't fail at teaching them. Too bad. No problems had arisen that Kara and Karim could not handle with Umar Kham's advice. The school for sorcerers was learning that many forms of fire magic, something Alana had explored as far as she wanted to. She diverted the shamans for an afternoon to the problem of lightning, which remained broken despite all the spells she had tried. But their efforts to repair it came to nothing. The last try blew down several tents and brought Halfstief to command them to stop while within village precincts. She wasn't important, but like just trying to prepare her sword nearly knocked down everyone's tents.
Yeah, that would be a stopping point.
Yeah. Discouraged, Alana often went riding alone, deliberately returning after sunset to avoid the moment they joined with the voice of the tribes. She only missed John at those times. She missed George with a sullen ache that refused to go away. Because of all people, George made her laugh. She was grooming Moonlight after one ride, wondering what she would do now when Halfstief found her. "You are restless," he commanded. "What troubles you?" Putting her mare's combs away, she replied, "Do you know 6 days ago I celebrated my first year as a knight?" "Karam mentioned it," the headman admitted. "Anniversaries make me think. I've been remembering all that's happened since I won my shield." Falling into step together, they walked toward the hill overlooking the village. "You slew the sorcerer Duke. You know, Halfstief, I don't
Fletcher
dream."
didn't even stay dead for a year.
Right? It's like, I killed him and like not even a year later my brother's bringing him back to life. Like,
Siblings.
what would she do without Tom? Probably live a restful life.
Yeah, well, not restful, but like, be a little less traumatized.
Yeah. Like, I killed him once, why did you make me kill him again?
I feel like he should have been like, hey, we gotta do another murder, sorry about that. That'd be the polite thing to do.
Yeah.
If I made you have to do a second murder, I would let you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, Halfstief, I don't dream about that much anymore. Maybe it was a waste, and I acted too quickly, but it's over. So much has gone on since then. I came here, I met you, and Kara, and Karem. I don't know, she always says it's like it was a waste or it was too quick, but at the same time it's like it was a duel to the death anyways, right? So
You should have just let him bleed out.
well, no, because like she ended up killing him as fast as she did because of the poison that he was emitting, but it would end up killing the entire court that was watching, which included the king, queen, and Jonathan.
But he had that whole Disney villain thing going for him.
Right?
Either I'm king or no one is.
Basically. He was like, I'm not king, and there's no one gonna make king, and everyone's gonna fall into civil war.
You know, he was rather likable. He could have gone civil war a different way. A lot easier.
Yeah, right? Like, everyone liked him.
Like,
Except
made
for
John
Alana.
look incompetent.
Mm.
He actively made John look competent. That's the, like, stop setting him up for success or murder. Make him look like an idiot. Teach him less.
Well, you stop and think about it, like, had he not dared Jonathan to go to the Black City, he wouldn't have come back a hero to the Bazaar.
Right? That's like, he could have just been...
Teach him a
literally
spell
stop-
wrong and have him kill himself through a spell.
Exactly. You're like, wow, I absolutely didn't teach him that. What an idiot.
It's like, I taught him correctly, he just decided to do it the complete opposite way I taught him.
Well, oh well, guess I'm king now.
Exactly. You could have just
You
made
had
it
so
like an
many rules
accident.
to teach John to be stupid, and yet you chose to bully a teenage boy into doing competent things.
Mm.
Have you never met a teenage boy?
Yeah.
I swear.
The problem
If
was
I
is
was
that he was still
able to
acting like a
get-
very much like a teenage boy himself.
Yeah. That's why he's having sex with somebody half his age.
Exactly.
And more alive than him. Well, you know,
Well-
progressively equally alive as him.
Yeah, regressively equally alive because he's slowly stealing Tom's life force and powers. Maybe that's how
I
he
feel
does it.
like-
He steals more of his life force through sex.
Yeah, he's sucking a little more than expected.
Exactly. George, oh, no, that's right. Tom at first thought he was in charge of Roger and was telling him to do sexual acts on him, and then all of a sudden it just completely reversed.
Roger's a power bottom.
Exactly. Ishak also, he reminded her as he slowly climbed the hill. Alana nodded, her mouth twisted, sadly. I guess what happened to Ishak taught me I can't punish myself for things that are over and done. After all, I had to get on with teaching Kara and Karem, not with mourning him, but I'm proud of the girls. They are pupils to make any shaman proud, any tribe for that matter. At the hill's summit, he bowed, indicating a flat-topped rock he was to be your seat. Alana laughed and dusted it off, noticing the blackened spots around it from the magic she had worked here with her apprentices, and the scorch marks left by Jonathan's right of the voice. She sat, and Halifsif knelt beside her, watching the village. You know, it's funny. I've learned more about other women since coming here than I ever did before. Pages and squires don't spend much time with women, and besides, she grinned, I was notoriously shy when it came to girls. Aleph chuckled. And so you've discovered you like your own sex? How can I... What?
Lesbian.
Yes.
I mean, no, but...
Oh, no, it's more... She's learned to like gender that she was assigned at birth over... She's very fluid, so she was just relearning her femininity and learning that learning that she could like it as well. How can I not like other women? Alana inquired, particularly after knowing Kara and Kurem, and Mari Farhar and Farda. I don't feel nearly as odd about being female as I did before I came here. But now you must be moving on? He asked gently. I hate it when I'm not doing something useful, she admitted. After spending all those years studying things or performing duties around the palace, I've gotten into the habit of working. With Kara and Kurem doing so well, there's nothing for me to do. I've been thinking of riding south to Kurem, see what I can find. I know of a task for you, if you wish it. There was a note of diffidence in the headman's voice she had never heard before. Name it. He smiled reluctantly. I have a friend, a woman who is a sorceress in Al-Wa, near Lake Tiraragan, in the hill country. For 3 nights I have dreamed she was in peril, cut off from me by fire. He shook his head. We grew up together. Before she discovered her gift, she could not stay. There was no woman who rides like a man to say she could be a shaman. But she returns here often. Is she the reason that Halef never married? Alana wondered. I would go to her myself, but my duties do not permit such freedom. Alana put her hand on his arm. I'll go. Don't worry about your friend. If she's in trouble, I'll do everything I can to help. For a moment, he covered her hand with his, the lines of concern smoothing out of his face. Thank you, Alana. I think that's the first time he's actually used her name. Because he's always referred to her as a woman who rides like a man.
Yeah. I think my headphones are dying, so I might have to...
Oh no.
abandon you. Like, I'll still be text-based in chat. But
Yeah.
Find wherever the hell they put the cord for these.
Oh no. Stop dying headphones.
Yeah, they've done that beep beep like 3 times now, so.
Oh yeah.
Of course, knowing me, I didn't put. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'll give your tentacle one last lick. Nah, nah. I don't have a tongue in this form, so you'll just have to pretend.
Yeah.
Blah, blah. Okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Or, well, you know.
Yeah. Ditch me.
Visually. And then verbally. First.
Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Alawa was a 5 days ride out to the north through the hill country. Karam and Alana donned their leather and mail for the trip instead of burnouses. Alana made sure her uncovered lioness shield was prominently displayed. Just as a Vizier, they might have encountered trouble. Just as Tartalan soldiers, it did not glimpse another soul. During the ride, Faithful stuck close to Alana, never straying. The knight knew her pet was worried. Wait, what? For whatever reason, it defaults my output as my microphone? What the what? Makes no sense. Should probably just leave them plugged in and not use. Yeah. That's usually the smart way of doing things. He wants to play sound on my microphone. Weird. Oh, right, because it is considered a soundboard as well, so you can, in theory, plug your headphones into the microphone and listen to it. It doesn't work, but really wants to. Huh. It should work. But yeah, I suppose like USB wireless. Yeah. Yeah, I getcha. Yeah, it doesn't work because there's no speaker attached to the mic. Yeah, you can, and then isn't no speaker attached to the mic, and you can't plug your headphones into the interface. I getcha. May swap the headset for something else maybe sometime. That costs money. Yeah. It's not a big thing. Bone conductive ones? Yeah, those are actually really nice. I tend to wear them like all day, every day lately. I can't go very long without any sound to be made, which makes going to sleep very, very, very difficult. Because it just like very dark room, no sound is like, I need sound. I do not want to be left alone with my thoughts. They were cool. Yeah. You know, I could send you some wireless ones. They're not the best bone conductive ones out there, but I had bought like a $30 wireless pair from Amazon. Like they're like the Chinese knockoffs. I don't use them, so. They won't work with a computer though, but not usually anyway. Well, they are Bluetooth, so if your laptop has Bluetooth available, so you know I love your freebies. Butt spot, so close. Right? You just replace the wrong word with butt. Hey, is this? I'm not sure whether this is working right now. No, because OBS opened before Mix It Up block, but yeah, my laptop can do Bluetooth, I think. Yeah, in theory, laptops are usually built with Bluetooth built in. Although the ones I have, you might not actually like them, because they clip onto the outer edge of your ears, so you might find it too, like, your ears might hate you even more. I don't know. It's the bone connection is through the cartilage rather than through the spot on your cheekbone. Stop trying to force the door open. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it was very. Yeah, it was just a little slowly dying. It was fine until it ended. Okay. During the ride, Faithful stuck close to Alana, never straying. The knight knew her pet was worried. What's going to happen that you aren't telling me? She finally demanded when they passed the marker indicating the village was near. I don't know, Faithful admitted. I just have a bad feeling. He settled down in his cup, the tip of his tail switching anxiously. It was a beautiful day for January. The breezes were warm and the snow had melted from the ground. Alana expected children to be playing outside the huts that grew thicker as they approached the village. But no one was in sight. If people watched from inside their homes, there was no sign. The noise disturbed her, and she jerked around in her saddle. Karam was taking the canvas wrapping from his round leather shield, his dark face grim. I don't like what I'm feeling here, he admitted. Do ye? Alana grimaced and undid the fastenings that held her shield over Moonlight's haunches. Settling the lioness rampant on her left arm, she drew the crystal sword with her right. Doesn't even hum at me anymore. Then she heard people shouting in anger and fear. It was impossible to make out those words. The voices came from the village's center, behind the first wall of huts. They trotted forward, scanning watchfully now as they made for the source of the cries. No one ran out to greet them. The huts of the village proper were as deserted as those outside. There was a mob in the wide space that was the heart of the village. A tall, angular man in tattered grey robes stood on a platform that raised him, head and shoulders above those around him. Alana's senses prickled with uncomfortable recognition before she and Karam stopped beneath the eaves of a large cottage. They examined the area for armed men, other than the villagers who waved sticks and farming tools, waiting to see what the fuss was about. Yazed will have your souls, howled the man in the platform. His wide eyes gleamed with fanatic joy. Behind him, a tall post thrust against the sky. The sight of it made Alana sweat. Where had she seen this picture before? Yazed is angry. He is ferocious. Obey his command. Cleanse yourself of the ancient evil, or Yazed comes with the plague and famine to cleanse you. Obey the servant of Yazed. Only then will you escape the wrath of the god of stones. A knot of men, struggling with something, encircled the tall post. Alana remembered. Twice she had seen this place, the madmen exhorting the people. Only in her second vision, the one given to her when Ishak had destroyed himself, she had seen a woman burning at the post. A knot of villagers struggled with something as Karam whispered, This Yazed is one of the Scandal gods, I think. A nasty fellow. Dead set against witchcraft or any magic. Alana frowned. Why had the goddess sent her this particular vision? What meaning could it have? Her nostrils caught the scent of burning woods, and someone screamed in agony. Now you do Yazid's work, the priest screamed. Burn the sorceress! Cleanse this village of her taints! The people roared their satisfaction. The woman they were burning screamed again. Alana reacted. A year ago, she would have hesitated. A year ago, she had not been a Bazir shaman. Bolts of purple fire flamed from her open palm, knocking those they touched to the ground. No! She screamed. When they turned to charge, she pointed the crystal sword, opening a chasm at their feet. Fiend! The priest cried, holding up a large, black star-shaped pendant. A jewel at its middle twinkled in the sun and caught Alana's eye, but that trick had been played on her once before. Duke Roger had been far cleverer at it than this man. She reached out, putting her line as shield between her and the priest as she whispered spell words. The priest shrieked as first his jewel, then the pendant shuddered and cracked into 1,000 pieces in his grip. Grim-faced, Alana rode forward, Karam at her back. Faithful stood erect on the saddle before her, back arched, fur erect, hissing with fury. A villager ran, yelling at Alana, swinging a hoe. Karam swung between them on his bay, knocking the man aside with the flat of his broadsword. Several rocks flew by. One struck Alana on the head. For a moment, she reeled sickly. Sheer fury rose up in her, splitting from the crystal sword in a bolt of magic and hurling 3 of the rock throwers in the air. The villagers broke and ran. Erect swinging hose. What? You're just pulling words from that I've read out to put together. Alana freed both hands and reached for the clear azure sky. Goddess! She cried to her patron, give me rain! Well, yeah, that's how I do. Yeah. For a moment, all of time froze. Then the Emberstone began to pulse in a slow, majestic rhythm. As great thunderheads blotted out the sun, there was a deafening crack of thunder, and the rain flooded down, dousing the fire at the stake. Thank you, great lady, Alana whispered, feeling the first niggling touches of exhaustion from her use of magic. The priest, armed with a dagger, launched himself at her. Faithful jumped to meet him and landed on the man's face. The fanatic screamed, trying to dislodge the cat, until Karam ended his cries with a sword thrust. Don't waste yourself in the likes of yawn, he advised Faithful as the cat disentangled himself from the body. Reaching the stake, Alana cut free the woman they had tried to burn. The victim slumped to her knees among the still, smoldering logs, oblivious to her hurts and to the rain. Karam joined them, pulling the injured woman into his saddle, cushioning her gently. We've got to move, he yelled over the thunder. They'll be back, better armed, I don't doubt. You killed the priest! A young man armed with a long axe was advancing on them. His god will hold us to blame! Alana dismounted and drew the crystal blade. Get her out of here, she ordered Karam, settling her shield on her arm once more. The ex-soldier hesitated, and she yelled, Do what I say, before the villagers come. Frowning, he obeyed. Alana faced the armed villager. Don't be a fool, she told him. I'm a full knight. You won't stand a chance. You lie! The man charged, holding his axe in a clearly practiced manner. Alana caught the downswinging axe on her shield, knocking it aside. In the same motion, she sliced up from under the shield with the crystal blade. The man jumped back, skidding in the mud. And Alana hacked the axe blade from its handle. The crystal blade hummed, filling her with a sick, killing joy she thought she'd wiped from its makeup. Alana staggered, her vision clouding. The young man yelled with delight, swinging the axe haft in a blow that connected solidly with Alana's unprotected right side. She dropped to her knees, just getting to the shield up in time as he swung on her head. The crystal sword screamed in her mind, demanding the life of the man who was attacking her. Alana's hand was sweating, making the hilt slippery in her grasp. Was this how Aknan ibn Nazir felt when he used his life force trying to kill me? She wondered. She threw the sword aside and hurled herself off the ground, ramming the shield at the villager. He yelled and dropped back, letting the axe haft fall. Alana swooped and grabbed it. She put herself between the crystal sword and the villager, watching him intently. The sword's magic, she panted as he stared at her. If you take it, it'll kill you. Why would I throw it away otherwise? I don't believe you, he gasped. Then try to get it. He darted to the side and forward, thinking she would not be fast enough. Alana brought the axe haft down on his head, knocking him unconscious to the ground. For a moment, she swayed, gathering the strength to kneel and see if she had killed him. His pulse was steady and strong. He had a lump on his head, but she judged that he would survive. Maybe now you won't go attacking strange knights, she whispered, wiping the sweat from her face. She picked up the crystal sword and resheathed it, feeling no trace of its magic. Maybe that was its last try to turn me into breaking and killing, she told Faithful, who had stayed well out of the battle. Are you willing to bet on that? The cat wanted to know. Alana gathered Moonlight's reins and mounted. Not in the least. Faithful jumped onto the saddle, and Alana turned the mare away from the village. She stopped once at the square's edge to look back. The tall posts still stood, lit by flickering lightning. Alana pointed at it and spoke a single, powerful word. The stake blasted from the ground as if shot from a bow, shattering into fragments no larger than toothpicks. Alana and Karam halted by the marker they had seen that morning. Hurriedly, the knight spread a ground cover on the wet grass. Karam gently placed the sorceress on it. The woman they had saved was in her 40s, dark-haired, her eyes a deep brown. Old and new bruises covered her. A trickle of fresh blood accented the corner of her mouth. She was badly burned. Taking her hand, Alana reached with her gift, already knowing what she would find. Don't spend your strength, child. The woman's voice was hoarse. I know I am dying. Alana withdrew, sick at heart. How did you get such deep injuries? They stoned me yesterday, was the answer. My poor children. Who will look after them now? You're sorry for them? Karam asked, astounded. It's been terrible. A terrible winter, she whispered. The food was running out. Yazad's priest told them it was because of me that the food stores would renew themselves if they had me killed. They were hungry. Fools, Karam muttered. The sorceress took Alana's hand. You two have given me the death I did not hope to have, lying at peace among friends. Halef Sief sent you? Alana nodded. I prayed he could help. Never think you came too late. My life was over when they laid hands on me a week ago. How could I have lived knowing the ones I'd brought into the world and cared for wanted me dead? Squeezing Alana's hand, she said, Open your hearts to me. Alana felt the sorceress in her mind as a kind, gentle presence easing her bitterness over the woman's impending death. A second later, the older female released Alana's hand, sweating and trembling from her efforts. You are the one I need, she gasped. Listen, Alana of Chabond, I could give you a gift. Will you accept it? Alana touched the ember stone. It was warm, but not hot. And she realized what the sorceress had to say was important. Go on. The woman's battered lips parted in a smile. Listen well. You have the knowledge to restore your broken sword. It was the spell that made you one with the bloody hawk and one with your foster father. It lies, the spell that made the prince the voice of the tribes. Take the crystal sword and make it one with the sword that is your own. You will need it. A dark time is coming for Tatal. Alana nodded, hiding a trembling lip. The sorceress reached inside her tattered dress and produced a scorched silk envelope that bulged with its contents. I would have let this burn, but now you may take it to Halefsief. He will know what to do. She shuddered, her limbs twitching. When the convulsion passed, she said, Let nothing stop you from giving that envelope to Halefsief. I'll do it, Alana told her. Don't fret. The woman nodded. I'm so tired, she whispered. Thank you. She smiled at Faithful. All three of you. Her breathing was suddenly shallow. Tell Halef I'll be waiting when he makes the journey. Her voice trailed off. Within moments, her breath had stopped. And Alana gently closed her eyes. Tear blinded, she stood. Ram buried the sorceress. Did he even know her name? Alana shook her head, watching her companion shovel the last bit of dirt onto the grave. Halefsief never mentioned it, and neither did she. Although one starts to wonder if, say if she had come to this village looking for this friend and she hadn't been about to be burned at the stake, how would she have asked after her? I guess she knew where the sorceress is, but how does one go looking for a person without knowing their name? Before I finish my drink. Boo. A pity to leave her without a marker, Aram admitted somberly. It's our lives to go to the village and find out. Physical description? Yeah, I guess, but who would wonder why Halef just didn't tell her name? She'll have a marker, Alana whispered. You don't have the strength, Faithful cautioned. When will you learn to stop? I'm going to do this one last thing, she retorted. Stand back, both of you. As Karam and Faithful obeyed, she clenched her fists. There was no spell for what she wanted to do, but she was determined not to let that stop her. If the will to accomplish was the greatest part of any magic, she had only to tell the earth what she required, and that was what she did. The ground beyond the head of the grave shook as she pulled at it. When she opened her tightly closed eyes, a granite pillar stood to mark the burying place. Deeply graven letters proclaimed, "Here lies the sorceress of Aloha, who loved the people who killed her." Karam took over, getting her as far away from the village as possible. She was barely conscious when he chose a campsite. She collapsed, exhausted, onto the ground, barely waking when Karam tucked her into her bedroll. He couldn't wake her the next morning. Since Faithful showed no signs of alarm, he settled down for a day of relaxation, keeping a watchful eye on his night mistress as he whittled. It was sunset when she awoke, getting away from a dream. The throne room was filled, the king and queen on the thrones, Duke Gareth beside the king, John with the queen. Although she could see clearly, she heard no sounds coming from the people's mouths. Her friends watched with a mingled awe and horror as Tom introduced a bowing man to his sovereigns. That man looked around into Alana's eyes. He was Roger of Conte. She could hear him clearly as he remarked, "I don't kill easily, do I, lioness? But thank your brother for this. Mind you bring back my sword." She sat bolt upright, her clothing damp with sweat. "Nightmares again?" Karam asked, stirring a pot of stew. It was nearly dark. "They're never real, lass. Have some food." She told him the dream as they ate. The sight of their fire and the Faithful playing with wood shavings finally reassured her. "Sometimes I wonder if I don't want him to come back," she sighed, putting down her bowl. "But that doesn't make sense, does it?" Karam blew an experimental note on the flute he had carved. "Well, the two of ye have had some unfinished business," he commented. "And think, it's not granted to all of us to have one great enemy. The Duke was yours. The problem is that once you've vanquished such an enemy, life might be a little empty. You have spent so much time thinking about him, and now he is not there to worry you anymore. You don't think I'm having, well, prophetic dreams? Have you had them before?" "No. Visions sometimes, but not dreams." "It doesn't seem likely you'd start having them at such a late date. Your dreams are still just dreams." He watched with misgiving as she put the crystal blade and the two parts of lightning on the ground before her. "Now, what are you up to?" "She told me how to mend lightning, and that's what I'm going to do." Faithful came to sit beside her as Karam backed away. For a moment, Alana stared resentfully at the two long scars on her right forearm. Gritting her teeth, she drew a third wound beside them with her dagger, letting her blood drip onto both swords. A harsh wind sprang up. Their fire burned purple. "One," Alana whispered, closing her eyes and fumbling for the best words. "Crystal and whole, unbreakable, strong. One crystal in the hilt, straight steel, sheared in two." Dust whipped against her face. "Two." She moved the three pieces closer to each other, separate yet together, becoming. Power shuddered through her body. "One," she yelled over the shrieking wind. "One blade, unbreakable and whole." At last, flare of power blasted through her, unbearable in its strength. Alana fainted. Of all the crazy, stupid stunts. Karam's familiar grumble soaked through the darkness around her. You'd think you'd wait till you recovered from the fireworks yesterday, but not ye. Alana swam up out of the dark toward his voice. No, ye must prove you're the Lord's Tom and can do anything. Alana forced her eyes open, grinning weakly at the man who was propping her up. She was wrapped in blankets. I just wanted to fix my sword. No more fireworks tonight, Karam. I promise. He snorted, clearly disbelieving her. Carefully, he picked up something and fitted her hand around the hilt. She was almost too tired to lift it. Lightning's battered round crystal topped the silver hilt. The blade was thin, as lightning's had been. It was steel with a ghostly grey sheen. There was no feel of alien magic or anger in it, and the sword fit Alana's hand well. As she looked it over, Karam observed, You've traveled a distance, haven't ye? 'Twas only a year ago you said you'd never use your magic again. Now you're a shaman and making up your own spells. Alana smiled ruefully. Have you ever noticed that when you try to deny some part of yourself, things fall out so you need that part more than any other? I was afraid of my magic, partly because I was sure it couldn't be controlled. The crystal sword taught me it can. Before I came to the Bazaar, I saw a lot of magic used only to harm. Being a shaman cured me of that. I guess I'm not afraid of my gift anymore. I'm the one who wields it. My gift doesn't wield me. And now, I can help the people I swore to help with my abilities. Does that make any sense? She asked worriedly. Karam grinned. As much sense as anything from the mouth of a noble. You've been living among thieves too long, Alana told him. Testing her thumb on the sword's edge, she cut herself. Smiling with delight, she hefted lightning. Now I'm ready for anything. Speaking of anything, Karam said as he banked the fire for the night. What next? Where do we go in the morning? Someplace new? Faithful wanted to know. His tail was twitching with excitement. Alana crawled into her bedroll, feeling exhausted, but satisfied. Well, we need to take the sorceress's envelope to Halevsiev. She yawned. It must be pretty important, or she wouldn't have tried to burn it rather than let anyone she didn't trust have it. Very well. And then? I think we'll ride south, Alana told her companions. King Barnesh of Meren is holding a great tournament in April. I want to start acting like a knight again. And maybe we'll find some adventures along the way. Sound good? It's about time, Faithful grumbled as he curled up beside her nose. From his own bedroll, Karam said, It sounds beautiful. Now get some rest, lioness. Alana reached beside her and found Lightning's hilt. She gripped her restored blade as she moved towards sleep. A weary smile on her lips. Her first year as a knight was over. She had survived. And if there was trouble ahead, well, she was ready for it. Yeah. She was a year as a knight and very little of it acting as a knight. Well, that is it for tonight. We have finished a woman who rides like a man. And my phone is now telling me it's bedtime. You will. Yeah. It is what she gets for having to kill a shaman and earning the shaman's place in the tribe. Yeah, time for slime to sleepy, indeed. Anyhow, I hope everyone has a good night. For those of you hanging about, feel free to hit the follow button if you haven't already. It's free to you and it's helpful for me. It lets you know when I am on live next. I should be live again tomorrow evening with Foppin once more, playing some Baldur's Gate 3. It's a game I'm sure will probably take us a year to complete together. Yeah. And I am going to try to make us a point to stream some Final Fantasy XIV. I've had the itch of it lately after the audiobook I've been listening to. Which is basically lit RPG, but it's also kind of like MMO, so kind of with guilds and kind of things like that. So like, I'm gonna try get back to Endwalker. Finally. And get complete for the first time. Yes. And it'll start again for another year, right? Get a different ending. Romance different peeps. I don't know. We'll see. My war is still a lower level. Yeah. If you need a tank. Yeah, I probably will. If I continue being healer, but we'll see. I need to relearn how to use Sage as well. You haven't played it in a moment either? Yeah, we'll just relearn it all together, right? Anyways, let's jump. I'm gonna jump off. Who do I see people posting? Okay. Have a good night, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye. You're not working? Apparently my hand gestures are not working today. Alright. Bye.